Well, and you mentioned something I wanted to bring light of. You mentioned looking at PvP guides recently and that they weren't using protect prayers. Go delve a little bit more deeper into that to me because that still kind of blows my mind. What have you seen? What is the specific current? I know because I know you want to touch on this as well.
Yeah.
The specific current iteration of PvP in RuneScape.
So if you go in, if you type in RuneScape free PvP on YouTube, RuneScape free
Okay.
PvP, you'll see a list of videos from Exterminator RS. There's another
Mm-hmm.
guy, I can't say his name
Mm-hmm.
properly, but for the well, yeah, this some of them actually do it. So I'm not like, so I'm not. I am generalizing here, but
Mm-hmm.
when I asked him the question right on his YouTube channel, I can't remember the exact video. He said players don't want to do this because it's not fun,
Mm-hmm.
and that's baffling. That's baffling to me because if you want to win in a PvP encounter, you'll do anything to win. It doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
if it's fun. And not only that, but if you like PvP in RuneScape is it's broken, but it's not broken because of the combat system. I need to
Mm-hmm.
preface this because when people say it's broken, they don't know what that means. It's broken because
Mm-hmm.
invention is innately oriented to doing more damage. If you look at all the defensive, if you look at the defensive perks, like let's say absorption, right? You can't use
Mm-hmm.
the absorption perk in PvP. You can't. It doesn't work in PvP. But let's say
Yeah.
you have crackling or energizer. Yeah, all the damaging perks you can use in PvP to a lesser extent.
Mm-hmm.
So that obviously skews the idea of PvP in being inherently broken. But if you were to strip all of that down, if you were to strip all of that down and just focus on the fundamental, let's say armor and weapon, I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
sure you would not see these one shot, two shot compilations. The problem here is that we have so much content, so much variance in the game, so that could affect the PvP outcome that just gets stacked on top of each other over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes it complicated to learn and understand and see what is going on, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what leads to these one shots and two shots. But you can always defend for that, and the problem is that you don't have a system where you can have a best of three,
Mm-hmm.
where you can learn from your mistakes and make changes. Because
And
the only system that was there is the
that
wilderness, right?
that is the part that I think does turn off a lot of players where RuneScape is a time investment. It is an opportunity cost game at its core. Why would I go play Soul Wars? Why would I go do when it was their dual arena for any legitimate reason versus I could go fight Solak and potentially go for a Blightbound crossbow drop or Cinderbanes. It it's an opportunity cost to climb to the end game. And part of why PvP in its iterations with Jagex has failed is that, especially out of safe death environments, who wants to go into PvP and lose an FSOA? You have Gratz lost 3.5 bill approximately.
Yeah,
And you can go Mickey in our in the server is prime example of this. You can go 500 to 600 hard mode Carapac kills without any sort of a unique drop. No staff drop whatsoever. It's demoralizing, especially if you told someone coming into the game, "Hey, I want to," assuming that you could let them have access to an account with a full end game gear, right? Not not saying that I'm legitimizing any sort of
yeah.
account buying, RMT, anything like that. If someone could come in and they could have the full setup, and in one game they lost it all, what's the retention there?
Yeah.
How are they gonna
Of course they're
what,
gonna
what's
quit,
what
right? Of course they're gonna
yeah.
quit because it's like, why do I have to lose the skier? And it'll be like you go to a trading card game tournament, and if you lose, you have to give over your deck. It's very stupid in that regard. It's,
Yeah, Magic banned anti for that reason. It's just it shouldn't be there, and it also leads to issues that don't need to be there.
but again, you need to like PvP. You shouldn't be doing that. It should be we have a fun competitive competition between the two of us. One of us
Yeah.
wins, one of us loses, and you should just end that. It should just end at that. And maybe
Hmm.
you're rewarded. Maybe you're rewarded a little bit, but that's about it.
And if you did want that full loot experience, have a section of the wilderness that is still that. That way, you do cater to the so the PK or community, because there are people that do want to do that, or they do want to have those high risk interactions. Like that should still be allowable to some extent, but it shouldn't be the only iteration
Yeah, I
of it.
think that they might get into trouble with like gambling laws and stuff like that, because that would be what it would end up becoming, right?
Yeah, correct. So that's I know the EU definitely differs from the US in certain regards, where a lot of things are getting subject to these gambling laws. And I think Discord recently ended up taking down a bunch of servers and stuff that were promoting that. So I don't know the legal end of the back end of Jagex. I really don't. I don't know what
Yeah,
governmental
I'm
pressures they're subject to. I have to
yeah,
make sure that I
yeah,
state that.
they're being looked at. Like anytime something happens regarding gambling, they're patient zero.
Hmm.
So they probably won't be able to get away with something like that unless it's like unless it's truly fair, which is what a PvP system is, right? If it's truly
Yeah.
fair, then it would have no trouble putting that into the game.
Hmm.
But because it's not, because if you have something like the wilderness, it's made to be unfair. It's made to be unfair.
Hmm.
So there's nothing that can actually be done.
Like I haven't gone back to it rather than day one because I don't know the validity of the bug that was addressed, the AOE hitting the familiar. I don't want to go into the wilderness and lose my FSO. I really don't. Like that just I can't do it again.
I'm pretty sure. I'm
um
pretty sure. Like it was a rumor, and
I
if it
think that was what it
it was
was.
a
I think
rumor,
it was a rumor specifically, which is hence why I worded it the way I did. I don't know if there's validity to it. I don't. Uh, but even the fact that that's a thing, right? The fact that this is even a rumor and it's causing people like me to just look at this and go, it also turns people off to PvP in general because this is the only real iteration of it
yeah,
left.
it's
To which you brought up a good point earlier, the Smogon example.
yeah, the tiers, right?
Hmm.
Just have players fight within tiers where it's safe death, so they can. Yeah,
More importantly, Smogon is not
it's
run by TPCI. It's not. It's run by the Smogon Council. It's run by an
the,
independent party.
yeah, the community, right?
So, I mean, it is entirely possible with enough work, with enough effort, and enough people that know what they're doing realistically. It is possible to make, and this you can see this in any game. I mean, there's people that will LFG in older games like Halo 3, when the servers were still up. You have that community to be able to keep the thing going, and there's that communication, that transparency. You're using the game as your main method of play, but the medium to facilitate your PvPing is going to be, this council, this RSC.
Yeah, you basically just said it. Like it's the grassroots scene. You can't force an esport. It has to be grassroots. The players want to do that,
Hmm.
and that can only be achieved if there's a good foundation for them to jump off of. If there isn't a foundation, of course they're not going to do that,
Hmm.
and that's what needs to be done essentially, and that's what needs to be done in old school as well. I don't think old school
Hmm.
players know about this as well. Like some of these issues across games, it's the same
Hmm.
game essentially, just different style of gameplay, but they have similar issues with PvP,
Hmm.
and it's like everyone says they want an esport. Everyone, I remember Jimmy, the old school RuneScape content creator.
Hmm.
He made a video about RuneScape should be an esport, and he was like, "Oh, it will be amazing about all this," but he never brought up how this would be done. He never brought up
Hmm.
the grassroots scene. He never brought up
Hmm.
how would this be funded? Because let's say you want it to be an esport, okay, are you gonna have tournament organizers run this game? If tournament
Hmm.
organizers are gonna do it, then they have to have access to Jagex's servers.
Hmm.
So they have to like run their own, like obviously their own version of the game. That can also be you have IP laws for that, and Jagex really care
Yeah.
about protecting their IP. So it's
From
just
my understanding on that point, if I understand it correctly, not that I've actually gotten onto any of them, there's clones of RuneScape out there, not like
yeah,
a knockoff, right? But like an actual like someone has RuneScape but on another server, which I know Jagex does take down, and I will never not say, to support these because it's of what it is. It's IP infringement, it's security risk, etc. Um, I'm not like you technically could do that there, but I think Jagex has
the,
the right to protect their IP.
Jagex will shut that down immediately, and the investors will shut that down as well. So it has to be
Yeah.
like So you're kind of forced into, unless they want to give that right out for a PvP esport, right? For an esport.
Hmm.
But I don't think they're willing to give that right out. I think
No.
most MMOs will protect the IP as much as they possibly can. And that then puts into the camp of Overwatch, where it's a developer-run esport, and you can have
Hmm.
major issues if there is no legitimate grassroots scene there to begin with.
Hmm.
And there isn't. The truth is there isn't, and there's no foundation, and people just like the idea of esports, right? People like the idea of a little kid from 16 years old, he got bullied in high school, he plays this video game, and now he's a world champion. People like that dream,
Hmm.
but the reality of that dream is you need a. Actually, I'm blanking here. The reality of the dream is that you need a foundation for that to be done, and it needs to
Yeah,
be
you
rewarding enough.
need the ability to do it. You need the ability to retain and the ability to follow through.
Yes.
So, what I would like to pose, and I pose this to anyone that is watching this video, if you've made it 54 minutes in, you're an absolute legend. You
Yeah.
are clearly in the top percentage of players for just games in general because you can sit through and you can follow along with this. I'm sure you might have a
Yeah.
paragraphs of comments at this point. Um, the the thing to spark change is to just do it. So what I mean by this is, and I'm to be clear, I'm not saying RMT, I'm not saying go create your own Jagex server. No, none of that. There is still the ability to PvP in RuneScape. I mean, I know you can request a duel from someone else. So the challenge here would be if you think, and to anyone, if you think PvP does have a viable place here, if you think you do have the ability to help set up this council, if you have the ability to start running this, and you have data, Excel spreadsheets that if Jagex said, okay, we want to fix PvP, how do we do this? Here, have 10 pages of spreadsheets on why these abilities work the way they do and how we can fix them, what the cause and effect is of this. Just do it. I don't have the ability to do this. I don't have the time to invest in RuneScape to that degree, but there are definitely people that do 100%. And one time does prove everyone right, one or the other in anything. If it turns out to be a fluke, it turns out to be a fluke, and we move on. Or if it turns out it can be fixed, and you've put in the time and the effort with this RS Council, you know, you can show that look, this is still possible. Jagex could pick up on it, and if not, if Jagex doesn't pick up on it, well, guess what you've just cornered? You've cornered a niche market with a solid player base that wants to do this. What's to stop you from making your own game?
Also,
I don't see a downside of that.
yeah, sorry. There's no reason they shouldn't try, because right now it's like every time Jagex tries to launch a new game, it fails for some reason.
Hmm.
And it fails. The reason I think it fails is the very niche games that they try to appeal. Like, do you remember that Hearthstone game that they tried to make?
Oh, I feel like I vaguely
Yeah,
remember
the
this.
Chronicle of it. Yeah, the Chronicle. You get the teleport in old school.
Hmm.
It flopped. Why is that?
I mean, it's not RuneScape. It
Exactly.
just isn't.
Yeah, but they were borrowing the RuneScape IP to make that game, and it
I
was
mean, you can use the League of Legends IP for an MMO if the MMO is bad, which I'm hoping it's not, right?
it's
If
not it's not
if
going
the
to be
game
bad.
if point being, if the game is
Yeah,
bad, no one's gonna play it. I'm hoping it's good because apparently League has a very deep lore that I was totally unaware of until
yeah,
this week.
yeah. It has very deep lore. It's basically ticked off everything that an MMO needs already, and it
Hmm.
also has the DNA of World of Warcraft in it.
Hmm.
Riot Grosscrawler, Riot Riot Gross, I can't say it, Ghostcrawler,
Hmm.
who worked on World of
Hmm.
Warcraft before he moved to Riot. So he
Hmm.
so he has MMO experience already, and he's
Okay, perfect. So that was a bad comparison then. So I mean, clearly it has a lot going for it.
yeah.
Let's go Witcher and Gwent. Gwent happened to be awesome because it was designed well and it was able to stand alone from the Witcher IP. But if you have something with that IP that ends up being a flop, Diablo Immortal, if the gameplay sucks, it's not going to retain players and they're just going to go back to what they like.
Yeah, and there's also like you're competing with so many other things nowadays. It's really hard.
Hmm.
Like attention spans are going lower. It's,
If RuneScape went into the full 3D space, so say RuneScape 4 comes out and we're going like WoW, like WAS to move, I think it would be instantly worse, specifically because now it is competing with WoW, it is competing with Final Fantasy
Yes.
14. It's just not. It's why Adventure Quest moving to the 3D space didn't quite work.
I don't know what RuneScape 4 is going to be. I don't know what they can do to actually make it that much better than what we currently have.
I'm
We
confused what's going to happen to RuneScape 3, being completely honest.
I think that they'll eventually have to depreciate it, so it'll just go offline. They'll keep
Probably, yeah.
it'll be done in phases, right? So there'll be a few updates, and then eventually they'll start pouring out updates, and then eventually the server will still be there, and if players still want to play on it, they can play on it, but then eventually it'll be ported over.
Maybe that's why there's not that much content update. I mean, I'm one to talk, because if you look at my fucking quest tracker, I'm abysmally lacking in quest points. But I mean, you did mention earlier. I mean, it seems like they're rolling back a bunch of features. One, to comply with gambling laws, staking, dual arena. But they're what do you do after Zamorak? There's not really much to do from a narrative standpoint. From a narrative standpoint, you can't. The buildup of Zamorak you cannot transfer to something else. It just doesn't work.
Zaros,
It's
he went into the portal,
he,
remember?
well, yeah, he went in the but Zaros is not Zamorak, and Zamorak has a specific thing he did. It's why Kaguya didn't work in Naruto, right? You built up Madara for 7 years.
Yeah, but
Oh, by the way, it's Kaguya. It didn't have that. That didn't transfer
yeah,
over.
but
It was
we've
a
already
different villain.
yeah, we've built up Zaros for quite some time.
Okay, yeah, that's probably just me lacking quest points then.
Like he has the entire storyline of you reforging him.
Oh, fair enough. Then I will have to go back and complete those. But maybe I mean that could be why. I mean it's just conjecture at
Yeah,
this
I mean,
point. If Jagex is slowing down on content, they're rolling back a bunch
yeah,
of things. We already know RS4 is at the very least confirmed to some degree. It could be that they're getting ready to port it over. Which what's PvP going to be like in that? We don't even know what the game is yet, so we can't offer any sort of speculation. We can only say try to save it in RuneScape 3 so it does make it into 4. Is
I,
how I look at it.
I think at the very least they have a very good idea of skill designs, right? Like
Hmm.
these would be like jobs in other MMOs or professions in World of Warcraft, right? Like archaeology is
Hmm.
very rewarding when you get all the way to 99 and 120. Invention same, divination same, engineering the
Hmm.
same, summoning. I mean, I think they've only gotten better with this part of the game, which is
Hmm.
the PVE, which is effectively the PVE side of the game, right?
Hmm.
So they do have some good traits. It's just the biggest one for me is like combat
Hmm.
and boss encounters, right? Or like raids or
Yeah.
whatever it would be. Like I don't think they're well diverse in these two particular areas, and that could be like why it would fail.
Don't we still have Gamers Grotto? The outside of Falador, the portals to a couple different
Yes,
PvP. We still have that. I mean, it's
yeah,
not dual arena by any means, but there's still an active means for a PvP grassroots community to set itself up. And it has both options for you already. It's one got save death, and two got risk everything
yeah,
on death.
yeah,
If someone's wanting to grassroots that, if someone's wanting to test out PvP, that's the prime spot to do that.
yeah. So I remember like weeks ago, a month ago now. But I tried to go. I was interested in PvP, so I went over to World 2 Edgeville, and
Uh
then
huh.
it was just you can go there right now if you want. It's just a bunch of people PvPing with no care in the world whatsoever. And then you're trying to ask them, all right, how about we have a fair duel, and no one wants a fair duel. How about we wear the same gear and see who's actually better?
Mm-hmm.
And no one wants to do that, and that's, in my opinion, like in the culture. This is weird, right? It's the culture needs to be set from the developers, and in my opinion, I think the developers care way too much how they are perceived by the community to actually do anything. Like not the higher ups, the developers. They're too set in the ways of we need the attention of the community because we don't care about the community, and that's a narrative that they've been force fed to believe. I think that's always
Mm-hmm.
been lies, and that just comes from like the OSRS community disliking what happened with RuneScape in general.
I think old school did one thing over RuneScape 3. I'm trying to log into World 2, but it's full. Um,
Is it World Two? Let me.
it, it's full right now, which I was trying to log in. So old school RuneScape does something better in that prayers actually function. And what I mean by that is I had to look at the wiki a few times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating or misremembering things Mandela effect style. Um, prayers in old school were 100% effective, and you could have 2 active at once. Where in RS3, right, there's 50% effective. You can only have 1 active, but then you have to have a curse on top of it to do extra damage. So it adds a lot to PvP in that sense, where that's why you have, okay, I'm going to it's that back and forth of I'm going to swap from prey melee, prey range. They have to swap to their magic kit, but that's where you want them. So now you swap to maybe your melee kit because they prayed mage and they prayed range. So
It'll be
it's a very unique system.
Yeah, so I'm kind of confused on what you mean by 2 prayers that you can't use. Like
I thought you could stack 2 prayers on top of each other in old school.
you can't stack overheads. I'm pretty sure that's how it
I
goes.
could have swore you could do 2 in old school.
If you could do 2, then the Jad would be the easiest thing ever.
I thought that's why Jad was. I could also be misremembering this. It could just been the animation from the day looking because you activated the other, so it probably would have defaulted to the top and then replaced it as it went down. I don't know. I could have swore that wasn't the case, but clearly I'm going to it. I don't know.
If you're talking about overhead, you can't have 2 overhead prayers on at the same time. So you can't have retribution and redemption on at the same time. You can't have protect mage and retribution on. Like it's overheads that you can't have, unless I'm wrong, which I might be. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that if you do protect mage right now and protect range, they'll swap.
Yes, right now in RuneScape 3 they will swap. It is impossible to have 2 overheads. From what I remember back in RuneScape 2, circa 2008 2012, is that you could have 2 on, especially in the PvP scene.
I think that was protect. You can do deflect summoning, and you can also do deflect. You can also do the protection prayers with it. I think that's the only interaction that adds 2 together.
It could have been that, yeah.
Also, like, and just something. Do you have the Fortitude curse unlocked?
I should theoretically.
Yeah, that's another form of like damage reduction in the game that players could use in a hypothetical PvP encounter. But again, they use soul split and turmoil all the time. Or the higher one was the malevolence, desolation, and affliction. It's just the PvP scene is. I tried to actually convince some of these players to do that, but they don't want to do. The PvP scene doesn't want to do change, and the rest of the community doesn't care about PvP because they have no reason to care about PvP. They like PvM skill in question. So unless Jags are gonna come in and be like, okay, we're gonna do a major PvP change. They're gonna be safe PvP and it's gonna be rewarding. Unless they're willing to do that, it seems to be like a lost cause. It's like sort of like a lost cause. I'm in a bit of a doomer mentality with it.
Like, it's an uphill battle, 100%. If the game itself is not willing to be receptive to what you're trying to do, why the fuck do it? I actually ended up getting into World 2, and I'm actually a little bit depressed looking at the wilderness right now. Like there's nothing. I mean, cool. I see blue dragons above the sawmill, but it's depressing to see because I remember in 2 when this was full, like there were players up to like level 20 wilderness.
Wait, are you in World 2 Edgeville?
Oh, sorry, not Edgeville. Let me fix that. I was at the Grand Exchange.
Yeah,
but I wanted to see it just to quantify for the recording, just to see what was going on, because I think this is important. If someone does want to revamp RuneScape PvP, if someone wants to make a grassroots thing for this, and I'm not going to be opposed to it. I don't want to stake items. I don't want to